This is the No Stroke Podcast with your co-hosts David Dansereau and Michael Garrow, helping you to support and thrive in life after stroke. Their podcast is designed for educational and community support purposes only and should not replace medical treatment and guidance of your own health professional team.
Welcome back to episode 92 of the No Stroke Podcast. My name's Dave Dansereau. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Garrow. Good morning, Mike.
How we doing, David? Spring has sprung, I think. We're that time of year.
Spring has sprung. If you see me kind of go a little, moving around a little, I'm coming off the big my niece's wedding weekend out by your way. So I could have used the a hot sauna on the way home just to kind of stretch it out a little bit, but I'll it was well worth it. It was a great event. And
well, you got the cold plunge. I saw you got that hooked up, right?
I should. Yeah, I haven't got myself. It's empty. I haven't filled it up yet because something about these still 30. Yeah, I guess that's where it should be, right? 40, 50, but maybe this weekend, maybe Easter weekend.
All right, fair. Well, glad you had a good time on the dance floor.
Yeah, I was. That combination with the ride back and forth might have got the old back a little. It's a little spicy. Let's just say that, but I'll be okay. How about yourself? How was your weekend?
It was nice. Yeah, we took a quick little trip over to Dublin, caught up with some friends, got to spend time with my buddy's little babies. One like 4, coming on 4 years old, and the others probably like 12, what was it, like 14, 16 months, something around there.
Oh.
So yeah, it was nice wholesome visit, and got some saunas in as well. Caught up with our old pal Jim Joyce, who's just building and building. He's got his new company going, Clear IP, and he's always working at 1,000,000 miles an hour as he always will. But yeah, it was good to catch up with everybody and have a nice couple pints of Guinness.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Well, we have a returning guest, Dr. Mike Studer, and he appeared on episode 42. It was great to catch up. But before we do that, I just wanted to mention, I want to call out your post, and I wanted to thank a supporter of the show, because I want to talk just a moment or two about fundraising and the importance of, and I want to thank Gerald, who just recently came in as a supporter of the show last week. So thank you, Gerald. And Mike, can you talk briefly about, I did see your post in support of the work you do with Stroke OT and the recent fundraiser there.
Yeah, so Stroke OT, for those who aren't aware, is a Connecticut-based nonprofit funded by Dr. Caroline Brown. Really, the goal of Stroke OT is to provide exercise and lifestyle programming for stroke survivors across the state of Connecticut, trying to fill that gap right after discharge and when insurance dries up. Caroline saw that as a big gap of stroke survivors not being able to access continued rehab. So, Stroke OT over the last few years has really been able to step in and support survivors, or really when it matters, to continue that therapy. And now we've started to, offer some programming for caregivers as well on the support side. So, yeah, fundraising is a big part of what we need to do to remain sustainable. And, through, I think it was started the day I flew back. I think it was like March 31st through this April 2nd. There was a fundraiser called 860 Gives, which is supporting just Connecticut nonprofits. And, it was a great opportunity for us to kind of spread the word and, get the word out about what we're doing. And we were pleased to, finish within the top 5 of, money raised through this fundraiser.
Fantastic.
Which will kind of, and this is continuing, right? So you could still go to gives.org and /strokeot. So we'll put that link in the show notes for you, but you could go in. We're about 73% way through our goal. We've raised $6,900 and we're looking to hit 9,500. And there's a few different tiers of, ways that you could give. One for just, sponsoring one of our stroke OT classes, which is an online kind of virtual program, or different tiers all the way up to sponsoring an in-person group for our neuro program that we do at the local YMCA in Southington. So yeah, please, think if you're in a position to donate, hop over. Again, there's a link in the show notes below, and give in any way you can, because, this is an organization that relies on donations to keep us going.
Yeah. And I hope to give it a little bit of a bump later today. When I looked at it last night, I loved the layout. And, it kind of ties into today's episode too, about, what it costs to put on a program. And I love, I hope that you continue, because I know you need donations all year long, but this calls, as part of that statewide initiative, I guess, through is that your zip code 860?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, okay. So I'm only used to Rhode Island's, but we're doing the same thing in our state for local charities. But I just, like to run a group class, it's this much, or to give opportunities to maybe try some. And I know, like I've seen and followed closely the events you've done, like having adaptive mobility bikes out in the community for and you're going to hear you're going to hear Mike Studer later talk about offering opportunities for success. You'll hear him talk about the difference between, kind of put him on the spot, between the difference of exercise being king versus physical activity, and opening the doors and things like that Stroke OT does. It maybe gives someone an opportunity to get that boost, and once that, we talk about my passion was running and continues to be, and hockey, but those things resonate with me, and we want to open more doors for folks, both especially after a life-changing event like stroke. And I'm proud to announce too, Mike, I'm able now to be able to, I just launched early, because I was going to launch it with the pre-orders for my upcoming book, but I was able to launch my Believe in Balance course, and some of those proceeds and are going to be able to do just this, offer group class donations, so I can support many of the other charity, nonprofits who are doing great work, like Carolyn. And Carolyn is like our guest coming on, is, correct me if I'm wrong, is Caroline's a two-time on the show, right? So she's a two-timer.
Yeah, I believe
so.
Yeah,
I believe we've and yeah. So I just want to have folks head over if they can, because this stuff just doesn't happen by pure will. It does require funds to keep the doors open. So there's so much I can say about Mike's episode, but we, I don't know if you had any thoughts, or do you want me to just jump right into his bio here?
Yeah, let's give a quick bio, and then I'll just.
Yeah, there were a couple of takeaways. Sure, here. So I'm going to go right off Mike's TED Talk, which we do mention briefly. Dr. Mike Studer is a physical therapist. He's certified as a neurologically trained clinical specialist. He has been a PT for over 30 years, conducting research, writing papers, book chapters, topics ranging from stroke rehab, cognition, Parkinson's disease, dual tasking, and much more. He has presented by invitation to 48 states, 4 provinces in Canada, 9 countries, 3 continents. And in fact, he was heading out after recording. He was heading out to, I think it was UNLV, to present to PT students after we recorded with us bright and early. And his full-time clinical practice, in addition to practicing, he's an avid marathoner, health nut, and Mike can easily be engaged on his thoughts about exercise, nutrition, sleep, and learning. And that's exactly what we did on this episode, including diving into 2 books he has written since coming on a couple of years back.
Yeah, I think anyone who's kind of been in the stroke research neuroplasticity space knows Mike Struder, right? And he's, every time we talk, I think it just really shows, right, his level of caring, right? Like, he is a true definition of provider who cares for his patients. And I, for any patient who has been fortunate to have Mike Struder as their PT and doctor, like, I think it might be one that pushes you a good bit, but he's also someone who really is taking the time to care and be sure that you're going to get the best out of yourself. And now is just doing so much outside of the 4 walls of a clinic, to really advance this space, which obviously I know, David, you've invested your career into, and there's new folks coming into the field each day. Like, I think Mike Struder is one of those guys who a lot of people are going to look at as someone who's pushed this this field forward in good ways, both for clinicians, but also patients and caregivers who are out here trying to find hope. And what he talks about with neuroplasticity and all of these things is as much hope as we could have as stroke survivors and caregivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And his energy is contagious. And as you'll hear him say, he remains bullish on physical therapy. And it's hard not to walk away from listening to Mike speak and not be empowered, excited. And he drips out a little bit of a teaser. He's constantly publishing. I don't know when Mike sleeps because he re-recorded Mike bright and early. I think it was before his run, but he's 3 hours difference from us. So he was ready to rock and roll, as he always is. And, one of the new publications that you'll hear him tease out, there are these new rules to neuroplasticity, and Mike's the one to kind of be updating these rules. And Mike, this will hit home too, because we talked about on the last episode, there's this power in belief, right? That's if you have to, and I say in my course too now, like, you have to believe before you can achieve. And to hear Mike and all the good work he's doing, and to talk about 2 things really before we jump in. One, with his new book, it's My Facebook. Mike had a bout with Bell's palsy that we talk about the self-imposed stigma and how that can actually hurt healing and not help. And Mike, thank you for something you said after we stopped recording. I just want to make sure, having you mention that the work that you and I, Mike, do, and that I, had mentioned that I was kind of embarrassed and ashamed early on and said some of the things on the show. When we stopped recording, Mike, Dr. Struder mentioned that kind of resonated, and one of the reasons why he put out the work that he did, so to help others. So thank you for that, Mike. And I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this update with Mike Struder. I really wish we had returning guest jackets, Mike. I wish, because we've had some real good ones.
We've been fortunate, and we have another couple coming up to close out the year or close out what we're doing, but yeah, we have a few more up our sleeve.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's get into this one with Dr. Mike Struder.
Enjoy.
Welcome back to the podcast, Mike. It's great to have you here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to be here. Thank you both for the re-invitation.
Of course, yeah. We were sitting here as, we kind of took a bit of a break at the end of last year and put plans in place for 2026. And, we're pleasantly surprised to say, hey, we're very close to 100 episodes here, and we put a list together, and we said, who do we really want to bring back for past guests, and just who's left on our wish list, and your name was right up there at the top, Mike. I think the importance of what you talk through around neuroplasticity and your focus and the education you've been able to provide. It's been, I remember the last episode, and we were just talking, January 2023, we had you on, and, since then there's been so much momentum in the space as well. But, I think after that episode for both David and I, it's been, that really the optimism that we came out, after hearing your words and hearing the motivation you had and just everything that you've given into this space. We needed another episode with you just to relight it. So, one thing that came out, so we'll jump into, what you've been up to as of late. But one thing that, David and I were talking about after, we had you on the last time is you have a pretty interesting world record that you hold. So I think you need to share with the guests here what that's all about.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. So I'm the current world record holder for the fastest underwater treadmill marathon. Now, I originally set that record in 2012. Then I broke my own record 3 subsequent times. So I'm dumb enough to have done it. No other person broke it. Then I rebroke it 3 other times. So let's just say it's a world record with a strong asterisk.
Okay. Now let's double click on this. I need to understand. David and I were having a bit of a debate. Underwater treadmill, right? I've seen ones that are submerged, that your body's above, right? Like your shoulders are maybe above the water line.
Yeah. So
David,
David
thought you were sinking and holding your breath.
Some people think that, and I just let them think that. This is shoulder height water. The floor of the pool is a treadmill belt. And so I'm running at full speed as fast as the treadmill can operate. So when I started off, I did a 7.2 mile an hour entirety of the marathon. That amounted to some latitude on the math and my recollection. I believe like about a 3:38 marathon, somewhere in there. And then the fastest I've done it, I've come close to maxing out what the treadmill can do. I left it at an average of 7.4 miles an hour, which is, it's in the high 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's good on the knees, at least, right?
Oh, it's easy, actually. It's just a mental endurance project is all it is. When I get out of an underwater treadmill marathon, I can go and run on land. So Mike and David, when I finish a land marathon, my last step to cross that line, I cannot run another step tomorrow. And I'd rather not be doing much walking. They're totally different beasts, so don't give me too much credit for some sort of superhuman feat here.
I just have one follow-up question, Mike, because what is actually day 2 and 3 like after doing an event that is weight supported? Is it much different from running another event on ground, or?
Yeah, so when it's weight supported, the buoyancy offers me plus or minus high 50s to low 60% of body weight discounted. Okay. So I could go out and run a 10 miler probably the next day easily on land. Yeah.
Wow. So that's a good segue into, we had a great episode. We said episode 42, going back a couple of years, and like Mike said, things have just definitely progressed. But your episode, I'm going to, start off by saying, if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to that episode with Mike, to our listeners, go ahead and cue that one up. The topic was unlocking the human superpower of neuroplasticity. And since then, Mike, a lot has changed. A lot has changed for you too. You actually dove in, and we're talking about neuroplasticity in the brain. You've actually authored two books since that time, and I'm sure, like The Brain That Chooses Itself might have been in the works when we, you don't just write a book overnight, but there are two significant books that definitely, fun fact, I do a top 10 book list every year on my Substack, and you made the top 10 because I tend to mess books up when I think they're good. Like I dog tag them, and that is better than marking them up, but they're not often good for handing off to someone because it's distracting for anyone else who wants to read. So I switched over on your book. I'd love to show your title, but I see it set perfectly in the backdrop if you're watching here on YouTube. So it's called, Mike's book is The Brain That Chooses Itself, Mike. And I thought I would pull out two little snippets that I had follow-up questions. So nice thing about doing it on Kindle, you can quickly, tag them as notes and come back to them. You essentially, I think, are one of the, especially in the PT space, the king of exercise. But you made a statement in that book, and it was on chapter 8, leveraging the science of choice and applying this knowledge. And you started off by saying, exercise is king. And then in parentheses, you said it's not. Take it from there, because I had to stop and I said, whoa, Mike, that's why the rest of that chapter is essentially highlighted. So go ahead.
David, thank you. First, I want to acknowledge you're a multi-time marathoner yourself. So I see that in the background. I see your jacket. I know it all. I've been there. I've run from Hopkinton to Boston just once. We'll catch on that later if necessary. So I don't want to just take up all the marathon space and oxygen here in the room. Mike, you may be, I'm not certain. Okay, and that's okay. No shame. And here's exactly the lead in. Exercise should not be king. I understand the space that we're in. This is the No Stroke podcast. And if we just stand up here and say everyone needs to exercise to recover from, to prevent another, or to prevent a first stroke, we miss all of the important people that are unwilling to bow down to the king of exercise. And I want to respect those people. I want to value those people. And most importantly, I want to give space to those people to find a way to move their body in the manner that feels healthiest to them. David, it's the brain that chooses itself, just like you said. And I want to give people a choice in how they want to access movement. Physical activity is king. And under physical activity is the umbrella of exercise, but it's also purposeful volunteering. It's also recreational sport, and the list goes on. So if you like to exercise, great, but don't feel that it's the only way to either A, move your body, or to move your body in a manner that provides health to the brain.
Well said. Thank you for clarifying. And again, to go back, like I'm going to encourage, because you dove a bit into that during that earlier episode when we had it on part 1, and some of the, we could spend time going through some of those key points about, the importance, but also, can you just maybe add about like the importance of dopamine there, like how that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said there, because we understand so much from James Clear's book in 2018, Atomic Habits. There are many other books that came before that, and a few since. Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke, etc. We understand that people are unlikely to choose a healthy habit for themselves unless there is something that feels compelling to them. And it may be compelling because it can offer an opportunity to compete or to gamify. And I talk about that a lot in the book. And gamification is a way for some people to have a dopaminergic experience. I took more steps today. This is the greatest number of flights that I've climbed. My VO2 max score. When we compare ourselves in numbers, we're looking at points. That is one of the 4 attributes of gamification. Some people are motivated by other matters. A streak. This is the 21st day in a row that I've run at least 1 mile. Okay, that's another way to go. Some people are motivated by loss aversion. I want to invest in my 80-year-old self. David, all of these are opportunities for the human brain to experience success, pursuit, novelty, or reward. And we recognize those are the 4 different means by which we can create a dopaminergic experience in the brain. Dopamine's important. It can help us become healthily addicted or unhealthily addicted to an activity on our way toward creating an identity. I'm a runner. I'm a walker. I'm a weightlifter. I'm a pickleball player. Those matters are important because once we've created identity, we've reduced some of the friction between ourselves and that healthy habit.
Thank you for that. And that's kind of what I like, the way you laid out your book, and you also didn't, I'm not going to say didn't shy away from a lot. There's a lot in the media. There's a lot that your focus on on health span versus lifespan. And now in today, it's been years since that your first book came out, and I want to make sure we have time to cover your second. But there's one comment now, my training before I became a PT, I was a nutritionist and RD for years. So I was interested to see what you might have to say about supplements, and also about the sort of the medication alternatives now to support weight. And you didn't shy away from mentioning things now like the GLP-1s and supplements, but you also carefully used your words there. Do you want to can you elaborate? Because that was a big question. I said, if I ever get Mike back on, that particular phrase you used or terminology really was like, I got to ask him a little bit more about that. So go ahead.
I'm not a very large person. I try to stay in my own lane, and oftentimes the matters that I speak about take up a large enough space. So I want to make certain that I stay within the space that I am professionally and educationally deserving. Supplements, medications. David, I don't have a great deal of background in chemistry, microbiology, and the like. And I also, and this is the main reason why I did not put matters of supplements or medications in the brain that chooses itself, because I feel that there's a seesaw and a ping pong and such a rapid head spin on what is in and out of favor that I did not want to put a timestamp on the book to say, whoa, back in November 2024, he actually endorsed X supplement. And now look, that has been totally debunked. So I can give my book a greater degree of lifespan if, in fact, I don't put a timestamp on these matters that are so pivoting and just go through the machination of social media and science combined.
So, I think as we move to your second book, right? Like around, what is it? My Facebook, right? Which is a cute little, that's a funny term. I like that.
Important to have a space between face and book, just for others to be aware of.
So, I think this was written probably at a very interesting time here, given everything that's happening in this space. Not only like funding, but just in terms of where healthcare is going in general. So why don't you speak more to the direction of this book and the impact you're hoping that it brings?
Yeah, on September 15th of 2025, I experienced some tongue numbness, which turned by September 17th. I'm literally running into work on a Wednesday morning. I don't have very far to work at inpatient rehab, but that morning, as I was running into work, I felt my eye was closing as I was striking the ground, and I felt that my face was drooping. And long story short, I was incurring an onset of Bell's palsy that was a very insidious 48-hour evolution. And in that, I experienced an enormity of peace, clarity, and I did not get in the way of my own recovery. And it became immediately apparent to me that whatever I was going through, I wanted to journal. And so what I did is I wrote about my experience looking back to September 15th and then never looked back again. I took every single day what I was going through, and I didn't make it about Bell's palsy. I made it about going through a crisis. And so even though my Facebook is a play on my condition affecting my face, the book is in fact an opportunity for people to globally understand how can you make it through a crisis of relationship, of healthcare, of business, or other matters without making the experience worse. And so that's what I wanted to gift to people. And I believe I accomplished that according to the response that I'm getting about the book.
Yeah, I'm just going to add, Mike, to that. Like the fact that you were putting yourself on camera while that was happening in real time. First of all, very brave, you are out there. You're presenting you're acclaimed, like you're an expert in this space, and to not to admit that these things happen to people, right? But you didn't hide that, and it's beyond just that particular condition. It's like this, just for you to be able to journal that and then immediately have it to help people. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. Because I personally, for a while hid what was happening to me because I was afraid of just that. How is this going to impact my career? And when I first started to share it, there were even some of my own clients were kind of casting judgment, didn't know the clinical presentation, but like, well, you must be stressed. Why you're doing too much. So thank you for doing that. And I look forward to diving into that book. I have a deadline of my own I have to reach, so I easily can go down rabbit holes, and I know I would really absorb that. So thank you for doing that. In addition, you also got into, most recently, since we had you on, into the podcasting space. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's a very unambitious, very fun passion project for me. So David, my podcast is called Tuesdays with Mike, and it's a play on everything I name is a play on something else, an homage. The Brain That Changes Itself, Norman Deutsch. The Brain That Chooses Itself, Mike Studer. I won't make reference to my Facebook and where that might have come from. But Tuesdays with Maury is a very popular book. I decided this would be Tuesdays with Mike. I would release an episode every so often on Tuesdays. It's a fun opportunity to sit down with thought leaders, primarily in healthcare and aging and neurology alike, to be able to curate some volumes of information from experts in the respective fields. It's only available on YouTube. I don't even try to put it on Apple Podcasts or any of the other platforms, Spotify or otherwise.
Yeah, it's a great way for you to, continue to spread all the good word, and it's not a low pressure form of that, right? Yeah.
It is, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been received very well, but I get to learn and interact with people, and we know that social connection and divergence of thinking is extremely important, and I value that.
It's great. So I just wanted to kind of go back quickly to my Facebook, right? And going through those different stages that you're kind of writing about, I guess, what was, like, for you, the most challenging aspect of that process? Whether, obviously you're writing, you're documenting everything, but kind of going back and like putting things into perspective of like these different stages, whether it be the relationships, the business side of it, like what stuck out to you? And I guess, like, are you seeing a similar response in the people that have kind of, read this and shared their feedback? Like, is there one thing that you feel like you could pull out and be like, this is hopefully what I'm trying to really drive on?
There's a couple things. I'll be very brief about this. David's comments were very striking to me moments ago. And Mike, your question gives me an opportunity to bring this out. The self-imposed stigmas that we have when we go through something, when we attempt to repress or hide that we're going through something, it's automatically going to make that something worse. I'm not actually having problems with my wife. I'm not actually having performance issues at work. I'm not actually going through Bell's palsy. The denial that causes us to internally attempt to represent ourselves as something that we're not on the outside. I'm an extremely transparent person. I hide almost nothing. The reality is that's the healthiest way for the brain to be able to lower cortisol, improve heart rate variability, make for a healthier blood glucose profile, reduce inflammation. So my answer number one goes right back to what David said, is allow yourself the space to share what you're going through so you don't have to go through all of the physiologic, unhealthy, toxic cloud you're putting your brain through by trying to shroud it. So that's the first point right there. You could do that with any crisis starting right now. Share with someone, admit it to yourself, and actually go through it much more easily. And the second very quick point is that I found myself with the moniker self-applied, I am going to be the patient.
I love that. Hey, Mike, if we get a soundbite out of that, what you just mentioned about allowing yourself that time, and I locked down. And so, Mike, my co-host here, will probably agree with this, that some of the stuff that I talked about for the first time all these years later was on this podcast. Yeah. And it was hearing someone else say it that had gone through it. And it freed me to talk about it. So that's why, like, your book, like, for anyone who is going through a struggle, physical, mental, they're both connected, that, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a passion project, and I was proud to be able to put it out there. But I'll tell you, it was healthy for me to go through the project.
Yeah. Because that was your form of sharing, right? Telling your story, getting it out on paper. So kind of goes back to, like, no matter what that forum is, whether it's joining a support group or chatting with your practitioner, whoever, just
I should not have recovered as fast as I did, and I attribute the expedience of my recovery to the approach that I took, and that's why I think it's healthy for people to be able to adopt that formula, methodology to any crisis they're going through. I did not have any visible signs of Bell's palsy by the time I hit October 7th, I believe it was. And we're talking September 17th is when it fully exposed itself. That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, I think, like, and what's interesting with this book, right, is, like, you took it and made it, like, not condition specific, right? It's just like anybody could pick up this book and get those insights.
Yeah.
Right. I think there was a girl who wrote the book, David, My Stroke of Insight. Remember? It was a neuro. Jill.
Bolte Taylor. Another big TED Talk, in addition to yours, Mike. Another one in that neuro space.
Yeah. Because she was a neurologist, right? And she had a stroke and kind of walked through her whole, like, the symptom onset and the whole process. Yeah. So, let's kind of transition here. And I know, like, let's pull some stats, I suppose. And David, thank you for pulling these. So, Mike, you've authored over let's say 50 articles, right? Seen over 25,000 different patients. You've delivered over 1,000 full days of lectures. And this is the biggest one yet. Like, you've been on 2 No Stroke podcasts.
There you go.
So
I'll
now
add that
that
to
you're
my bio.
2 out of 100, I hear. No, good.
Actually, I believe, if I understand correctly, that equals a world record because I'm a 2-time guest. And I don't think anybody's been a 3-time guest. So I think I've equaled another world record today.
Yes, and if we had a budget, you would have like the Saturday Night Live jacket.
So with that being said, Mike, I think you've shared a lot around neuroplasticity. Is there anything you'd like to double click on here or share that are kind of new to our listeners potentially?
There's so much. You know me, I attempt to keep things brief and very clinically applicable. I'm co-authoring an article right now. Not many people know this, with Dr. Beth Fisher, one of the leading authorities in neurologic rehabilitation out of USC. And that article is going to add on to the Klein and Jones 10 principles of neuroplasticity with 8 new ones. I'm not in a position where I want to go through all 8 of them today, but just to give you some appetite for this, since Klein and Jones wrote the 2008 article on neuroplasticity, there have been developments that are clinically important that we recognize that should be principles of neuroplasticity. Sleep matters. Engagement matters. Belief matters. And I could continue on. So, consistent with the thread of what I've been working on, the brain that chooses itself gives people an opportunity to opt in and select what they believe is going to be healthiest for them. We understand now that the placebo effect is no longer a negative attribute. It's a positive. It is a instrument to be wielded to be able to grab therapeutic alliance, collaborative decision-making. Patient belief matters. What do you think is going to be help? What do you want to work on first in the clinic? When we have belief and the patient that's recovering from stroke says, I really want to spend some time on the treadmill with that body weight support harness. I think that's helping me learn how to walk faster. The therapist needs to understand that's part of neuroplasticity, because David knows dopamine matters. Dopamine comes from, we get to do what I want to do. Autonomy matters. Wolf and Luthwaite say that. So I could go on, but let me just, at least in a concentrated fashion, say that we need to be very persons first in our rehabilitation. And some of these principles are allowing brain health to be optimized, but the psychology of rehabilitation to be magnified.
Yeah. I love the way you answered that, because it does bring in kind of, we started with some of I think some of the reasons why you were compelled to write The Brain That Chooses Itself. It applies more to just, again, extending the health span. And it's just in addition, but especially with the neurological, or you're neurotrained, and your principles apply to just general health and well-being and longevity. And I think, as we kind of come to the final question in the show, we usually, you already answered the magic wand question, which, again, folks should go back and hear that in episode 42, because it really summed up neuroplasticity. And one of the things you did say in that, and you said neuroplasticity is a terrible thing to waste. Now, you also talked about it is a privilege for us as providers, and we have a big provider audience and following, if we get the opportunity to work with someone who has survived a stroke. It's a privilege. The industry right now, or the physical therapy space, we are facing a lot of challenges for those that are PT providers or OTs. A web PT, which is one of the bigger EMR providers and one of it's been in this space providing that service for a while, does an annual report about sort of not the state of the union, but the state of the PT space. And they cited several challenges. I'm sure you're familiar with it, that there's the challenges with declining reimbursement. There's the challenges with provider shortages, recruiting new therapists in general, never mind neurotrained therapists, which is a whole nother specialty that you can talk to for sure. But then with that, the burnout. So if we look, and I reframe the final magic wand question, is where do you see the profession, or where do you see stroke rehab and care going over the next 5 years, seeing that we have these challenges in front of us, and we know that we need to treat stroke as a longitudinal condition that is going to need those touch points and care points?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I think we have still opportunities in front of us. I'm a very optimistic person, and I remain so in the matters that you framed within this question. Okay, so let's take the understanding that persons with stroke need access to repetitions, to intensity, and in fact, to things that engage them. You can't just decide that task specificity is going to be whatever it is in the clinic. It has to be salient to this person. And so I think that our push toward precision rehabilitation is a cause for optimism. Because in the word precision, we spell the word person. And I think psychologically informed practice is something that is on the rise throughout all attributes of physical, occupational, speech therapy, and otherwise. Psychologically involved practice has been on the rise with motivational interviewing, therapeutic alliance, collaborative decision-making, et cetera, readiness to change models. And I think this is where intelligence beats artificial intelligence. Because we can see a human being, be personally aware of what they prefer and what works best for them, incorporate what they've told us about their grandson's baseball game that they're going to this weekend, and create tasks that are person-specific and engaging in a manner that elevates their intensity, their willingness to tolerate error, their thrive, because we have intelligence that's not artificial, and it can be so engaging and addictive for a provider to see how we can touch a human being that I believe we are redeveloping a, let's just say, cohort or generation of providers that see the humanness in neurologic rehabilitation, that it is on an upswing. And I teach in enough physical therapy programs that I can tell you I have reason to believe that on an objective manner. Tonight, I go to UNLV to teach from 5:30 to 6:45, and it's a combination of all of their cohorts, all three of the UNLV cohorts, their sports and neuro special interest groups are coming together to hear me talk about functional neurologic disorders. And there's a large gathering of people that are involved in neurologic interest in physical therapy school, much larger than ever. I'm very optimistic the provider shortage is going to go down. The burden on therapists is going to go down. Programming becomes easier when I am letting my patient give me some programming, and we see that improvements are going up. We're folding in technology. I am bull on stroke rehabilitation for the next 5 and 10 years, and I am pulling all of that in and using the benefits of all of the science that are coming to our feet.
that's exciting. And I think, seeing that in real life with, the students that you're going to be speaking with tonight, and I'm sure you speak with much more often, right? That's what we needed in this field. But I guess to kind of turn on that, like what needs to change in order for some of this to be actually implemented, right? Like, are we at a point where, one of the biggest points David, has been raising is around like reimbursement, and, are there conflicting like challenges where, all right, we're kind of putting emphasis into a personalized treatment, like, are the reimbursement pathways like set up for that time for the physical therapist to make sure there's alignment there, or do things need to change there to make sure everything kind of comes together?
So we've been on a very healthy push for the last decade. Academy of Neurologic Physical Therapy is what I can speak to. I don't want to neglect the other professions, but I'm not an expert in occupational and speech therapy and otherwise. So I can tell you that the Academy of Neurologic Physical Therapy has put a beautiful emphasis on objective measures. And I think the only way that we can prove our value and prove that we can continue to assist, benefit, and let's just say extend the health span of persons that are more than 6 months post-stroke is if we start to use objective measures that are widely recognized. And so it's important to study things at the level of the impairment, Fugl-Meyer, and etc. But I think taking meaningful, objective measures, if you go to the ANPT stroke website, you can see they have a set of core measures for stroke. Academy of Neurologic Physical Therapy, anpt.org. Therapists, if you want reimbursement to change, you need to make measurable improvements that are statistically significant in the people's lives that you're working with. If you're not already doing a 2-minute walk test, a 30-second sit to stand, and the list goes on, you are eroding the professional longevity of your ability to seek and expect reimbursement. It has to start with objective measures. And if we're person specific, we're going to engage somebody that wants to work that much harder, and we're going to get greater improvements in reliable measures in that manner. So you got to take the measures, you've got to engage the person, you got to maximize neuroplasticity. Those three together is how it happens.
Yeah, that's well said. Great way to wrap it up, Mike. And also, like in your book too, you can't manage what you're not measuring. If we want to get paid, we have to be able to measure as well. So, and prove outcomes. So, you have a long day ahead of you. Starting the day here before daylight on your end of the coast, your side of the coast, and you're also we just learned going to be presenting later this evening for a long workshop. So we are going to let you go. And I'm just hearing those insights, hearing because you're in there, like you're in university, you're teaching our next future leaders in this profession. So it's really refreshing to hear that you're seeing those into collaborations. They're looking at the whole person a bit more, and we have a unique position in the healthcare model where we see individuals at very critical points in recovery, but we have touch points that are more frequent than most providers. That maybe we're seeing them 2-3 times a week over a course when we can really make an impact. So thank you for that. We're going to put everything that you mentioned in the show notes. Give you the last closing remarks if you have anything else you think we missed.
I've always got something to say. I've been a clinician for 35 years. I hope to see patients for another 29 more years is my goal. I work inpatient rehab as well right now. I just worked on Saturday. Today's Monday when we're recording this. I'm engaged. I'm excited. I love the opportunity to, and I, again, will echo what I said in episode 43. It is truly an opportunity, a pleasure, and something not to be taken for granted to serve people that are recovering from stroke. The brain is the most important organ we've got, and we have the opportunity to help them remap what that looks like. Neuroplasticity is a terrible thing to waste.
Well said, Mike. Can't think of a better way to take us out. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right.